Toma liked quiet places. He worked as an engineer on Starpost 9, a peaceful space station floating near the edge of known space. The station was a mix of different species, tall, short, furry, scaled, all living together in a kind of delicate peace. Humans had only recently joined the Union of Worlds, and even though most of the others treated Toma kindly, he often felt invisible. That was fine with him. Toma wasn't looking for attention. He fixed things, made reports, and stayed. Out of trouble, his real world lived inside a small leather book, his journal. In this journal, Toma wrote things he couldn't say out loud. Poems, thoughts, daydreams. Sometimes he wrote about Earth, the way the wind smelled in the morning or the sound of rain on metal roofs. Other times he wrote strange stories or even poems that sounded like songs. Most of them were about feelings. He didn't fully understand loneliness, longing, and hope. One poem stood out. He wrote it late one night, staring out the observation window. It wasn't meant for anyone, just a feeling, shaped into words. She lives in stars I'll never reach. Her voice I've never heard, but in my heart she dances still, a whisper without. Word, it was simple, a little sad, but full of heart. When he finished, Toma smiled, closed the journal, and tucked it under his bed like always. The next few days were normal. He cleaned out oxygen filters, replaced a cracked power relay, and helped a lizard-like merchant fix their broken cargo drone. Nothing exciting. But on the fourth day, something strange happened. The journal was gone. He noticed it at night, when he returned to his small quarters and reached under the bed. At first he thought maybe it had slipped into the corner. He pulled everything out, his toolkit, spare boots, even an old earth blanket, but the journal wasn't there. Toma's heart started beating faster. He didn't care much about privacy when it came to his reports or even his tools, but the journal was his mind on paper. His dreams, his fears, his voice. Someone reading it would know parts of him he never shared. He searched the entire room twice, then reported the missing item to the station clerk. The clerk, a round blue alien with 3 eyes, nodded slowly and filed the report, but didn't. Seemed to think it was urgent. It is just book. Yes? Clerk said in slow English. No security code? No data chip? No, just paper? Toma said. But it's important to me. The clerk gave him a sympathetic look, but shrugged. Many things go missing. Check again tomorrow. Maybe it comes back. Toma didn't sleep well that night. The next day passed quietly. He checked the lost and found terminal 3 times. Walked through the halls near the diplomat wing just in case someone dropped a hand, even asked the cleaning. Robots. Nothing. By the 3rd day, Toma had nearly given up. But then the message. Kami was in the supply room, organizing repair cables, when his communicator beeped. The screen lit up with a message marked Priority 1. To Toma, human technician. You are requested at docking bay for at 1400 hours. Reason, special transport. For diplomatic summons. Authority. Jarellin, Royal House, and transmission. Toma blinked. The Jarellins? They were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Union. They looked like giant armored insects, 6 legs, tall heads, glowing eyes, very serious, very distant. Their queen was rarely seen, even in public. Broadcasts. Toma had never even spoken to a Jarellin, and now he was being summoned. He read the message again. It had to be a mistake. He walked straight to the station chief's office. The chief, a calm woman named Bren, looked up from her desk. I got this, Toma said, holding out the screen. Bren read it, her eyebrows rising. That's unusual. Is this real? She tapped the screen, checked the source codes. Yes. It's official. Jarellin royal ship docked 20 minutes ago. They asked for you by name. Toma's mouth felt dry. Why? Hey. What did I do? I don't know, Bren said. But when the Jarellin royal house calls, we answer. Get cleaned? Up. You leave in 30 minutes. Toma stood at docking bay 4, holding a small bag and trying not to sweat. The Jarellin transport ship was huge and black, shaped like a beetle with silver markings. It gave off a low hum like it was breathing. A pair of Jarellan guards walked down the ramp. Their armor shone like polished stone. One of them looked at Toma and clicked its mandibles. "You are the one called Toma," he nodded. "Yes, you will come." He followed them up the ramp. The ship's interior was dim and warm. Strange music echoed from deep inside, soft clicking and buzzing that almost sounded like voices in rhythm. They led him to a round room with soft lights and a seat made of woven strands. He sat down carefully. The guard turned and said, "The Queen awaits you." Toma didn't understand. What could the Queen of the Jarellans possibly want with a quiet human engineer? And why him? As the ship pulled away from the station and stars slipped by the windows, Toma's thoughts turned to his. Journaled to the poem, to the one he never meant for anyone to read. His fingers tightened around the armrest. Somehow, he knew, somehow, it had found its way to her. The Jarellan ship moved through space like a silent shadow. Inside, Toma sat quietly in the round chamber, still trying to understand what was happening. The walls around him glowed softly, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. He had never been on a Jarellan vessel before. Everything looked strange, curved, smooth, alive in a way. He hadn't spoken since they left the space station. The guards stayed silent too. They stood still like statues made of metal and stone. Toma's mind raced. Why had the Queen of the Jarellans summoned him? It was just a human engineer. He had never been part of any important mission. He had never even sent a message to a Jarellan, unless he remembered the missing journal. He remembered the poem. Could that be the reason? The very idea felt impossible? Why would a great alien queen care about a simple poem written in a small notebook? Still something deep inside him whispered yes. That's exactly what this is about. After what felt like hours, the ship slowed. The soft hum in the walls changed to a low tone. One of the guards turned toward Toma. "We arrive." Toma stood, his legs stiff. The guard led him through a long hallway. The lights grew brighter, and strange symbols glowed along the walls. Toma didn't know what they meant, but he felt watched as if the ship itself had eyes. They reached a wide chamber with a clear wall. Beyond it was a view of the planet Garaloth, home of the insect-like Jarellan species. It was beautiful green and gold, with thick cloud rings and glowing cities like jewels in the dark. Toma had seen pictures of the Jarellan world before, but this felt different. The planet seemed ancient, wise, and powerful. He felt very small. The ship landed in a garden, made of crystal trees and glowing vines. Strange flying creatures floated between the branches, humming softly. A gentle breeze touched Toma's face as he stepped off the ship. The air smelled sweet, like fruit and flowers. He was led through the garden into a large palace made of dark stone and golden glass. The building curved like a shell, rising into the sky with towers that spun slowly, catching sunlight inside. The halls were quiet and cool. Echoes followed every step. Symbols moved along the floor like flowing water. Then the doors opened. Toma was led into a grand chamber. It was round and wide, with walls covered in silver cloth that shimmered with soft light. A group of Jarellan nobles stood around the edges, tall and still. They wore shining armor and long cloaks made of thin, glowing thread. At the center sat Queen Viora. She was taller than the others, with a long, graceful body and 6 arms folded. Across her chest, her head was shaped like a crown, with bright blue eyes that glowed gently. Her voice came before her mouth moved, a soft melody that echoed in Toma's mind. "You are Toma of Earth." Toma bowed his head. "Yes, Your Majesty." She leaned slightly forward. "You write in the silent script. You shape emotion into symbols." Toma blinked. "You mean my journal?" the book, Viora said, her tone calm. "It was found by one of your machines. A cleaner drone brought it to our diplomat by accident. I read your words, especially the poem." Toma's heart stopped for a second. He opened his mouth but said nothing. Queen Viora continued, "Your words were simple, yet they stirred something deep in me. I have read thousands of reports from your kind, facts, data, logic, But never this. This fire wrapped in silence, Toma swallowed. It wasn't meant for anyone. It was just something I wrote to feel less alone. Still it reached me, she said. And now I must understand. Who is the one you wrote about? The dream inside your poem? Toma looked up slowly. The room was silent. Dozens of Jarellan eyes were on him. I don't know who she is, he said. I just imagined her. Someone kind. Someone who listens. I wasn't writing about anyone real. Queen Viora tilted her head. Her eyes glowed a little brighter. You wrote of longing, of reaching without touching. That feeling, it is not common among my kind, I guess. It's common for us, Toma said, his voice quiet. We dream a lot, even when we're awake. Viora looked at the nobles around. Her. Then she turned back to him. Will you stay? She asked. As a guest of my court, I wish to learn more. I wish to hear more of your silent script. Toma blinked. Stay. Like, on your world? Yes, Viora said. I offer shelter, safety, and time. You will not be a prisoner.
Right.
But I request your presence. Teach me. Help me understand this human art of emotion. Toma didn't know what to say. Back on Starpost 9, no one had ever asked him to speak about his poems. No one had even cared. Here in a room full of powerful aliens, a queen was asking to understand his feelings. I can try, he said. The queen nodded slowly, then stay. And speak. Let your quiet fire show us what it means to dream. Later, they gave him a room in the palace. It was strange and beautiful, with walls that changed color with his mood. A translator orb floated near the ceiling. The food was odd, but gentle on the tongue. Toma sat on the bed, still trying to believe it. Somehow, his lost journal, his poem, brought him here. He looked out the window. The Jarellan city shimmered below, alive with glowing light. Somewhere, in this vast alien world, his quiet voice had been heard, and now everything was about to change. The next morning, Toma was led through the twisting halls of the Jarellan palace. The walls gleamed with silver patterns that shifted like liquid light. He felt a mix of nervousness and wonder. He had never walked in a place so grand. He didn't know where he was going until they stopped before a large door carved from dark stone. It was covered with ancient symbols, glowing faintly blue. The guard stepped forward and opened it slowly. Inside was the throne room. It was huge, round-like. The chamber where he met Queen Viora, but far larger. The ceiling disappeared into shadows high above. Light came from glowing crystals set into the walls. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Queen Viora on her throne. The throne was made of interwoven metal and crystal. It seemed to pulse, gently, as if alive. The room was filled with Jarellan nobles and advisors. Their eyes followed Toma as he stepped forward. Some looked curious. Others seemed cold and unreadable. Queen Viora watched him carefully. She spoke in a voice that echoed softly in the room. Today we gather not for battle or counsel, but to hear words. She looked at Toma. Human poet, share with us the poem that brought you here. Toma's heart hammered. He had never spoken his poem aloud before. It was private, secret thought made into words. But the queen's gaze was gentle, gave him courage. He took a deep breath and began. She lives. In stars, I'll never reach. Her voice, I've never heard. But in my heart, she dances still, a whisper without word. His voice was soft, but clear. The room fell silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. When he finished, Queen Viora's glowing eyes closed for a moment. Then she spoke. Your words carry sorrow and hope, light and shadow.
What?
They tell of a soul reaching beyond its grasp. This feeling. It is rare among the Jarellans. She opened her eyes and looked at the crowd. Do you see? She asked. This human speaks of longing not for power, not for conquest, but for connection. For something unseen yet deeply felt. One of the nobles stepped forward, clicking, his mandibles in disapproval. Majesty, why honor a human's weak emotions? We are beings of strength and reason. Dreams are distractions. Viora turned sharply to him. And what strength is there without heart, without the fire that drives us forward? This poem shows us a power we forget, the power of feeling. The noble bowed his head, but the air in the room had shifted. Toma stood quietly, feeling both, exposed and proud. His small poem, written in a lonely corner of the galaxy, had touched an alien queen and challenged centuries of tradition. After the gathering, Viora invited Toma to walk with her in the palace gardens. The air was filled with the scent of glowing flowers, and soft light floated like tiny stars. "You have surprised me, Toma," she said. "Your poem spoke to a part of me I never knew existed." Toma smiled shyly. "I didn't think my words were special. Just thoughts I wrote down." "Yet they were special enough to bring you here," Viora said softly. "Tell me, why did you write such a poem?" Toma thought for a moment. "Sometimes when everything feels too big or too quiet, I write to find a place where I belong. I imagine someone who understands." Viora nodded slowly. "That feeling is new to me. The Jarellans often hide emotions to remain strong. But strength can come from showing what's inside," Toma said. "From being honest with ourselves." They walked beneath trees that shimmered with crystal leaves. For the first time, Viora seemed less like a queen and more like a curious being, searching for meaning. Over the next days, Toma stayed at the palace as Viora's guest. He met scholars, artists, and diplomats from many worlds. He shared stories of Earth and human dreams. In return, Viora showed him the secrets of Jarellan culture, their songs made of clicks and hums, their rituals of light and the heavy weight of royal duty. Slowly, a friendship grew between the human and the alien queen. Viora began asking questions about feelings, about poetry, about hope. Toma answered as best as he could, though sometimes words failed him. One evening, Viora brought him to a quiet chamber filled with soft light. There was a crystal harp that sang when touched. "Music is close to poetry," she said. "Would you teach me to create words that speak as songs?" Toma nodded eagerly. Together, they worked late into the night, combining human words and Jarellan sound. For the first time, Viora smiled, not the formal smile of a ruler, but the warm smile of someone who had found a new friend. But not everyone in the palace liked this change. Whispers began among the nobles. Some saw Toma as a distraction, a weak link that could threaten the queen's power. Toma heard snatches of conversation, words like danger, weakness, and outsider. Still, Viora stood firm. "You will learn," she told her court. "Sometimes the greatest power comes not from the sword or the crown, but from the courage to show one's heart." Toma knew the road ahead would not be easy, but for now, in this alien palace among glowing trees and shining stars, he had found a place where his secret poem was not just heard, it was understood. The next morning, Toma was led through the twisting halls of the Jarellan palace. The walls gleamed with silver patterns that shifted like liquid light. He felt a mix of nervousness and wonder. He had never walked in a place so grand. He didn't know where he was going until they stopped before a large door carved from dark stone. It was covered with ancient symbols, glowing faintly blue. A guard stepped forward and opened it slowly. Inside was the throne room. It was huge, round like the chamber where he met Queen Viora, but far larger. The ceiling disappeared into shadows high above. Light came from glowing crystals set into the walls. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Queen Viora on her throne. The throne was made of interwoven metal and crystal. It seemed to pulse, gently, as if alive. The room was filled with Jarellan nobles and advisors. Their eyes followed Toma as he stepped forward. Some looked curious. Others seemed cold and unreadable. Queen Viora watched him carefully. She spoke in a voice that echoed softly in the room. "Today we gather not for battle or council, but to hear words." She looked at Toma. "Human poet, share with us the poem that brought you here." Toma's heart hammered. He had never spoken his poem aloud before. It was private, secret thought made into words. But the queen's gaze was gentle, gave him courage. He took a deep breath and began. She lives. In stars, I'll never reach. Her voice, I've never heard. But in my heart, she dances still, a whisper without word. His voice was soft, but clear. The room fell silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. When he finished, Queen Viora's glowing eyes closed for a moment. Then she spoke. Your words carry sorrow and hope, light and shadow. They tell of a soul reaching beyond its grasp. This feeling. It is rare among the Jarellans. She opened her eyes and looked at the crowd. Do you see? She asked. This human speaks of longing not for power, not for conquest, but for connection. For something unseen yet deeply felt. One of the nobles stepped forward, clicking, his mandibles in disapproval. Majesty, why honor a human's weak emotions? We are beings of strength and reason. Dreams are distractions. Viora turned sharply to him. And what strength is there without heart, without the fire that drives us forward? This poem shows us a power we forget, the power of feeling. The noble bowed his head, but the air in the room had shifted. Toma stood quietly, feeling both, exposed and proud. His small poem, written in a lonely corner of the galaxy, had touched an alien queen and challenged centuries of tradition. After the gathering, Viora invited Toma to walk with her in the palace gardens. The air was filled with the scent of glowing flowers, and soft light floated like tiny stars. You have surprised me, Toma, she said. Your poem spoke to a part of me I never knew existed. Toma smiled shyly. I didn't think my words were special. Just thoughts I wrote down. Yet they were special enough to bring you here, Viora said softly. Tell me, why did you write such a poem? Toma thought for a moment. Sometimes when everything feels too big or too quiet, I write to find a place where I belong. I imagine someone who understands. Viora nodded slowly. That feeling is new to me. The Jarellans often hide emotions to remain strong. But strength can come from showing what's inside, Toma said. From being honest with ourselves. They walked beneath trees that shimmered with crystal leaves. For the first time, Viora seemed less like a queen and more like a curious being, searching for meaning. Over the next days, Toma stayed at the palace as Viora's guest. He met scholars, artists, and diplomats from many worlds. He shared stories of Earth and human dreams. In return, Viora showed him the secrets of Jarellan culture, their songs made of clicks and hums, their rituals of light and the heavy weight of royal duty. Slowly, a friendship grew between the human and the alien queen. Viora began asking questions about feelings, about poetry, about hope. Toma answered as best as he could, though sometimes words failed him. One evening, Viora brought him to a quiet chamber filled with soft light. There was a crystal harp that sang when touched. Music is close to poetry, she said. Would you teach me to create words that speak as songs? Toma nodded eagerly. Together, they worked late into the night, combining human words and Jarellan sound. For the first time, Viora smiled, not the formal smile of a ruler, but the warm smile of someone who had found a new friend. But not everyone in the palace liked. This change, whispers began among the nobles. Some saw Toma as a distraction, a weak link that could threaten the queen's power. Toma heard snatches of conversation, words like danger, weakness, and outsider. Still, Viora stood firm. You will learn, she told her court. Sometimes the greatest power comes not from the sword or the crown, but from the courage to show one's heart. Toma knew the road ahead would not be easy, but for now, in this alien palace among glowing trees and shining stars, he had found a place where his secret poem was not just heard, it was understood. The days in the Jarellan palace passed like soft music. Toma had a new routine now. He woke early, walked through the glowing gardens, and then spent time in the royal study with Queen Viora. They wrote together. It's not just poems, but stories. Viora asked questions about Earth, its trees. its oceans, its people. In return, she showed Toma ancient Jarellan scrolls, full of silent songs written in color and light. The more time they spent together, the more relaxed Viora became. Toma noticed she laughed more. Her voice lost its sharp formality. Sometimes. She asked things like, "What does rain taste like?" "Ow." Or "What is the sound of a lonely heart?" He answered the best he could, and sometimes wrote poems just for her. Their bond was quiet, but deep. But outside their chamber, the palace grew colder, not in temperature, but in mood. The nobles had grown restless. They watched Toma with narrowed eyes. Some whispered behind walls. Others stood stiff when he passed. A noble named Tren, tall and sharp, stepped forward one day during the Queen's council meeting. "Majesty," he said with calm but firm tone, "you give too much time to. This human, he is not part of our world. He does not know our history, our duty, our strength." Viora sat still on her throne. "And yet, he teaches me something none of you have: how to feel without fear." Tren did not back down. "We are leaders, not dreamers. Feelings do not guide a strong hand." Toma stood quietly at the edge of the room. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He could feel the anger behind the noble's words. Not just anger, jealousy, and fear of change. "I am both leader and dreamer," Viora said gently, "and I choose to listen to both heart and mind." But after that day, the air in the palace felt heavier. Late one evening, as Toma walked alone through the quiet garden, he heard a soft sound behind him. He turned quickly. A small figure stepped out from the shadows. It was Rill, one of the younger palisades. Her voice was low. "You should leave." Toma frowned. "Why? Not everyone wants you here. Some believe you are distracting the Queen. They speak of old laws, ways to remove outsiders." Toma's heart tightened. "I didn't mean to cause trouble, I believe you," Rill said. "Belief is not enough. Be careful. Watch the shadows." She vanished into the trees before he could ask more. That night, Toma sat in his room and looked out at the stars. He felt torn. A part of him wanted to leave, go back to Starpost 9, return to quiet work, small rooms, safe routines. But another part, stronger now, wanted to stay. Because for the first time in his life, someone had truly seen him. Not just as a worker or a human, but as a soul with feelings and dreams, and that someone was a queen. The next morning, Queen Viora invited him to walk outside the palace walls. They took a small hovercraft across a glowing field of crystal grass. In the distance stood an old tower, broken but strong, wrapped in vines. "This is where I first learned about the stars," Viora said softly. "My mentor brought me here as a child. We looked at the sky and talked of faraway worlds." Toma nodded. "It's peaceful." She turned to face him. "Tell me, Toma, if you were free to choose, would you stay here?" The question hit him like wind. I don't know," he said. "Never planned for this. Never thought anyone would read my words, let alone bring me across the galaxy." Viora tilted her head. "And now that you are here?" Toma looked into her bright blue eyes. "I feel like I found something I didn't know I was missing." There was a pause. The wind moved gently. The Queen looked up at the sky. "Sometimes I forget what the stars truly mean," she whispered. "But your poem, it reminded me." When they returned to the palace, trouble had already arrived. Tren and two other nobles stood near the throne room, surrounded by guards. Their voices were raised. "We demand a full hearing," Tren said. "This human is no diplomat, no warrior. He should not sit at your side or speak into your heart." Viora stood tall. "You do not choose who may speak to me." "But we serve the people," Tren snapped. "They watch. They ask questions. They fear weakness." Viora stepped forward. "Then let them ask. Let them see. I am not weaker. I am wiser. I have seen beyond our walls." Toma stood nearby, silent, listening. One of the nobles turned to him. "And what do you say, human? Why are you here? What do you seek?" Toma stepped forward slowly. His hands were not shaking, even though his heart pounded. "I didn't come for power, or honor, or control," he said. I came because someone read a poem I wrote in silence. And instead of laughing, she listened. He looked at Queen Viora. She listened, and she understood. The room fell silent. Even Tren said nothing. Later in private, Viora spoke softly to Toma. The storm has not passed. But I will not. Ben Toma nodded. I didn't ask for this, but I'm not afraid to stay. Viora looked at him with something like warmth in her eyes. Then stay. Not as a visitor, but as part of something new. Toma smiled. Maybe he wasn't just a quiet man with a lost journal anymore. Maybe his voice was meant to echo in places he never imagined. The days passed, but the tension in the palace did not fade, though Queen Viora continued to meet with Toma in the garden and speak softly of poetry and peace. The halls outside were colder than before. Some smiled politely at Toma, others simply looked away. The nobles had quieted their voices in the throne room, but in secret they planned, and far below the palace. In the deep chambers, where the oldest Jarellan laws were stored, Noble Tren and two of his closest followers studied the ancient scrolls. The law is clear, Tren said, his voice low. The queen may invite outsiders, but she may not share royal counsel with a foreign heart. This human is no mere guest now. She trusts him. She speaks to him more than to us. What do we do? One noble asked. Tren's mandibles clicked slowly. We remind her who the throne belongs to, and we remove the voice that has made her weak. Above, unaware of the danger growing below, Toma sat beside Queen Viora in the royal library. He was teaching her how to write a human-style poem. The letters were strange to her, but she practiced patiently, drawing each word with care on a glowing page. I never thought a queen would care so much about poetry, Toma said with a small smile. I never thought a poem could feel like truth, Viora replied, her voice soft. She showed him the line she had just written. When stars fall quiet, I remember the voice that lit them. Toma blinked. That's beautiful. Viora looked up. Then I have learned well. For a moment, there was silence. A warm silence, filled with something more than words. But just outside, a servant rushed through the hallway with fear in her steps. She carried news that had not yet reached the queen. That night, the palace held a gathering. It was not a celebration, rather, a formal court meeting, the nobles had called it, and Viora agreed to attend. Toma wore a simple robe, the same kind he had worn every day since arriving. He did not think this meeting was special. But when he entered the throne room, he felt something was wrong. The room was darker than usual. The guards stood still, too still. The nobles lined the walls, silent. Queen Viora entered, her robe shining like starlight. She sat on the throne. You have called this court? Speak. Noble Tren stepped forward. We come not to accuse, but to protect, he said, to guard our ways. Viora raised her head. I have broken no law. Perhaps not, Tren said. But you walk close to the edge. This outsider, this human, walks beside you. He turned to face Toma. Speak now, human. Why are you here still? What place do you hold in this palace? Toma looked around the room. All eyes were on him. The silence felt sharp. I am no threat, he said. I came because someone read my words and wanted to understand. I stayed because someone listened. That someone is our queen, Tren said, and your presence changes her. Some say it weakens her. No, Viora said. Her voice was strong. It opens me. It strengthens me in ways you do not understand. You are our queen, Tren said, but even a queen must follow the balance. The people are beginning to speak. I know, Viora said calmly. But change always brings fear, and fear speaks loudly before it understands. Tren stepped back, but his eyes were full of fire. After the court, Viora met Toma in the quiet moon hall, a small room with open windows that looked out at the stars. I'm sorry, Toma said. I never wanted to bring trouble. You did not bring trouble, Viora said. You brought truth. And truth always shakes the ground before it grows roots. Toma sat down beside her. Do you think they'll try to remove me? Some may try, Viora said softly. But I will not let them. She looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the starlight. You are more than a visitor now. You are part of this story." Toma said nothing, but he felt something stir in his chest, a warmth, soft but strong. He belonged here. Somehow, in a place so far from Earth, he had found meaning. But in the dark of that same night, Tren moved. He sent a message through the palace guard system. One word: silence. A plan was in motion. 3 loyal guards would enter Toma's chamber. While he slept, they would not harm him, but they would remove him, send him back to the human station, quietly, with no return. It would be done before sunrise. But what Tren did not know was that Queen Viora had already moved first. The young aide, had overheard whispers in the hallways. She had told the queen everything, and Viora had placed her own guards near Toma's room. That night, as the silent guards entered the chamber, they were met with bright light and firm orders. "You do not belong." Here, Viora's captain said, "Return or be removed." The attackers hesitated. They were loyal to Tren, but they were not ready to fight the queen's own. Slowly, they stepped back. The danger passed, but only just. The next morning, Queen Viora stood before the full court once again. She held no sword, no crown, just a single page, the poem Toma had written. She read it aloud to the court. When she finished, she said, "Words have power, so do feelings. If a simple poem can frighten the proud, perhaps we need more poems in this palace." Then she looked at Toma. "You will not leave. You will stay. And from this day forward, you will speak not only to me, but to my people. Teach them, share with them. Let them understand what I now know." Some nobles bowed their heads. Others did not, but no one spoke against her. In that moment, Toma realized something deep. He was not just a visitor anymore. He was a voice, a bridge, a poet in a palace where words had once been forgotten, and the fire beneath the throne had become a light. Toma never thought his simple words would change anything. But now, standing before the great hall of Jarellan people, he felt the weight of every line he had ever written. The queen had given him a voice. One the nobles could no longer silence. And now, the people would hear him. It was a clear morning. Pale blue light filled the sky, and the crystal towers of the capital sparkled like glass. A large platform had been prepared outside the palace, where thousands of Jarellans gathered. Some were curious, some were doubtful, but all had come to see the human who had touched their queen's heart. Toma stepped forward. He took a slow breath and looked across the sea of alien faces. He held no script, no speech, just a page, a poem. He looked at the queen standing behind him. She gave a small nod. Toma turned to the crowd. "My name is Toma. I came from far away. I'm not a hero. I'm not a warrior. I'm just someone who writes what he feels." He held up the page and read, "I didn't ask the stars to listen, but they did. I didn't ask the moon to wait, but it stayed. I wrote these words in silence, hoping someone, somewhere might understand." Toma looked up. "That someone was your queen?" He paused. The crowd was quiet, still listening. She read my words, not because they were great, but because they were honest. And maybe honesty is what we all need more of. A gentle wind passed through the crowd. "I don't want to take anything from you. I don't want power or title. I only want to share something small but real. Because in a universe full of loud voices, sometimes it's the quiet ones that matter most." He stepped back, and slowly, something unexpected happened. A soft clicking sound began Jarellan applause. One voice at first, then many, then the whole crowd. They weren't cheering with noise. They were cheering with silence and light. The queen smiled. In the days that followed, Toma became more than just a guest. He was invited to gatherings, school chambers, and even to the Circle of Lights, a place where Jarellan artists performed. He spoke not only poems, but also stories of Earth, stories of forests, oceans, and how people back home looked up at the stars with wonder, not fear. The people listened. Many were moved, but not all. Far away, in a quiet mountain temple, a group, of ancient guardians called the Stone Circle watched. They were not nobles, not soldiers, but their voices carried power from deep tradition. One of them, an elder named Varu, watched a recording of Tama's speech. "He is honest," Varu said. Another disagreed. "He is human. His words carry danger." They stirred the queen, and when rulers are stirred too deeply, they forget the ground. "We should summon her," a third guardian said. "She must explain." Varu nodded. "Let her come. Let her speak. But let her know we are watching." Back in the palace, Viora sat with Toma in the sky garden. Flowers glowed softly around them, and distant lights blinked above. "I'm proud of you," she said. "You spoke from the heart." I was scared," Toma admitted, "but your belief in me gave me strength." She looked at him, quiet for a moment. "Some say a ruler should not feel too much, that emotions cloud judgment. But I believe emotions are like stars. Alone they are small, but together they light the sky." Toma smiled. "That's poetry." Viora smiled back. "Then perhaps I am learning." The next day, a message arrived. From the Stone Circle, it was simple. "The queen is summoned. Alone, come before the circle of ancients." Toma read it with her. "It sounds serious." "It is," Viora said. "Wow." "They are the keepers of the old ways. They believe in silence, in tradition, and in walls. They will not be pleased." "Do you want me to come with you?" Toma asked. She shook her head. "They said I must go alone. But your words will be with me." Viora traveled far across the Jarellan lands to reach the mountain temple. It was carved from silver stone, surrounded by wind and quiet. Inside, the stone circle sat in a ring of stillness. Viora entered with grace, her robe flowing like starlight. "Why do you let this human speak?" one guardian asked. "Because he speaks truth," Viora replied. "Truth is not always safe," another said. "No," Viora agreed, "but neither is hiding from it." "His presence changes you," said the third. "It makes you soft." "No," Viora said again. "It makes me strong in a different way. Strong not by force, but by connection." The room was silent. Then Varu spoke. "Do you trust him with your heart?" Viora did not hesitate. "Yes." Varu looked at her. "Then bring him to us." Him speak once more. If his voice is real, the stars will know. 3 days later, Toma stood once more in a place of judgment. This time, in the mountain temple, before the oldest eyes of Jarella. He was nervous, but he remembered something. Viora once told him, "When you speak from your heart, your words will find their home." He stepped forward. "I am Toma. I don't wear armor. I don't lead armies. I only write. But words can travel farther than ships." He looked around the circle. "You fear what I may change? But change does not mean breaking. It means growing. It means adding something new to something old." He raised his page. "This poem is not about power. It's about understanding. You do not need to know my world. To know my voice, you do not need to share my form to feel my soul. I did not come to shine, but only to reflect the light I found here." Silence followed. Then Varu nodded slowly. "This is not the voice of a conqueror," he said. "It is the voice of a gardener. And gardeners do not take. They plant." That night, as the stars lit the mountain, Toma and Viora stood side by side at the edge of the temple. "You passed their test," she said quietly. "We passed it," Toma replied. Together, she looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Then let us keep planting." The sky over Jarella shimmered with countless stars. But this night was special. It was a night of change. A night when old fears met new hopes. Toma and Queen Viora stood together on the highest balcony of the palace. Looking out at the bright city below, the people had gathered, their faces turned upward, waiting. Viora spoke softly. "Tonight, we celebrate not only a new day, but a new story. One where hearts and minds grow together." Toma nodded. "I never imagined I would stand here with a queen beside me under the same stars." Smiled. "Neither did I, but the stars bring us all here." no matter where we come from. The crowd below sang songs of peace and unity, their voices carrying through the night air. Toma looked out and saw people of every kind. Jirellans, visitors, even some children wearing bright colors from Earth. A great circle of light surrounded the palace. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Viora raised her hands. The light grew stronger. "This light is a symbol," she said. "A symbol that no matter how different we seem, we shine brighter when we come together." Toma felt the warmth of the light fill his chest. In the weeks that followed, the palace was a place of learning and sharing. Toma helped create a new library, where Earth books and Jirellan scrolls stood side by side. He taught young Jirellans about Earth poems and stories. In return, they taught him about their stars, their history, and their music of light. Viora worked with her council to create new laws that welcomed outsiders, but also protected traditions. The palace changed. It became a home not just for rulers, but for all who wanted to learn and grow. But change is never simple. Not everyone accepted this new way. Tren, the noble who had tried to remove Toma, remained silent but watchful. One day he approached Viora. "In the garden, Your Majesty," he said with a cold voice. "The people whisper. Some fear this human's influence. They say it weakens our strength." Viora looked at him calmly. "Strength is not only in force," she said. "It is also in trust and understanding." Tren did not answer. Instead, he bowed and left. Toma saw the look on Viora's face after that meeting. She was tired, but determined. "I will protect this palace," she said, "and I will protect those who bring hope." Toma wanted to say more, but he knew words were not always enough. Sometimes, all you can do is stand together. One evening, as the two walked through the glowing gardens, Viora stopped. "There is one more thing I want to show you," she said. They walked to a quiet corner where a small tree grew. Its leaves shimmered like silver. "This tree is special," Viora explained. "It was planted when the first queen was crowned. It represents our future." She reached out and touched a branch. "Now, with you here, it grows stronger. You have brought new light." Toma smiled. "Then I am honored to be part of this future." Viora looked at him with warmth. "And I am honored to have found you." Months passed. Seasons changed. Toma and Viora worked side by side, building bridges between worlds. The palace became a place where stories and poems were shared under the stars. And Toma's secret journal, the one that had started it, all was no longer hidden. It sat in the new library. It's opened and read by many. One night, as they stood on the balcony again, Viora spoke softly. "Do you remember the poem you wrote?" Toma nodded. "It changed everything." He smiled. "It was just words on paper. But you gave them meaning." Viora took his hand gently. "Words can move stars. And so can hearts." The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter. Toma realized something important, that night, no matter where you come from, Earth Jirella, or beyond, there is a common light inside us all. A light that grows stronger when we listen, when we share, and when we open our hearts. And sometimes, that light can bring a queen and a simple human together. Not just as ruler and visitor, but as friends, maybe something more. The galaxy was wide. The stars were many, but now among those stars, two voices sang in harmony, a poem of hope, courage, love, and a promise that no matter how far apart worlds may be, hearts can find a way. The end.